everyone. Welcome to episode 209 of Rush Roundtable. Today we are talking Driven, which is the second single off of 1996's Test for Echo. Today with us we have Jim and Alex, Kira, and Omar, and myself, Paul. We're going to talk about this song, which is one of my personal favorites from the album, along with, I'd say, Time in Motion and what's the other one? Oh, Limbo. So, without mind fart, it's all good. So, without further ado, we're gonna get right into the conversation. So, the intro to this song, that hard driving guitar riff, right off the top, catches your attention right after Test for Echo. What are your thoughts on that one?
They bring it up from a low tuned D down a whole step on Test for Echo up to standard tuning, and Lifeson brings it in with basically a very A minor. His riff is using the A blues scale, but the laying into the sixth fret, that's the tritone up from the root, he's kind of taking it away from being too bluesy and making it a little more heavy 90s.
Yeah, and I love how you got so actually I actually did look at the sheet music. That's one thing I did, the sheet music that I have access to, and this sucker just changes time signatures like crazy in the especially in the intro, right? It's changing like 3/8, 5/8, 7/8, 3/8, 5/8, and it's just like going back and forth, and throwing 6/8 and crap like that in there too. But the cool thing with it is, when I very first heard this, I did not have access to any sheet music, so I was just kind of going by ear, and I was going by feel, which is, I think, something that the band does as well. So even though they're writing something in a weird time signature, it doesn't feel that way. And I love the way that after Alex does the guitar intro, Geddy and Neil come in and kind of, punch the accents. And what Neil's playing is, not overly complex. It's when we get to the first chorus, I'll talk more about it, but his playing is his clock is different. His clock is different on this entire album because of his studies with Freddie Gruber. And I love it. I love what he's playing. I love how he plays it. So like what you mentioned with Alex's playing, Alex, I kind of have the same, feeling and thoughts with Neil's playing on this.
Yeah. And I also, to your point about the time signature changes, that lilt, there's so many time signature changes that I kind of like narrowed it down to like 15/8, then 14/8, like just back and forth like that. I mean, I couldn't figure it out, so I was counting those 15 notes here, then 14 notes there, 15 notes there, 14 notes. So the way the guys kept track of that throughout the whole song, during the verses particularly, but a blast to play. I haven't played him on the drums yet, but it's gonna make me play traditional grip, which we'll talk about more later.
Yeah, of course, right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, awesome intro.
Awesome.
It does catch your attention right off the get-go. That's my initial impression was just, oh, what is this? Big sound.
Yeah.
So then
short and sweet riffs, but I like the text. I'm not a musician, guys, as everyone knows, but I just want to say one thing. No, we're keeping this discussion not too long. I like all the time signature changes and the short riffs and the bass. I think it gives the guitar a lot of texture. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that.
It just gives it some pizzazz.
Yeah, it does.
And it's still smooth. It's still smooth. The way they do that with a lot of songs.
It's catchy.
Yeah, it's a lot of time signature change, but you feel like you can still, tap your foot to it.
Well, it's pretty much Lifeson just laying down some 16th notes, and where he does his pull-offs is kind of creating for guitar 4/4/7/8, and then obviously Neil really comes in to fill out. All right, where's this time going?
Yep.
Like three guys on this wouldn't be already saying.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So now let's move on to the first verse, or the meat and potatoes of the song. The first verse is driven up and down in circles, skidding down a road of black ice, staring in and out storm windows, driven to a fool's paradise. First thoughts?
It's the first thing that I think of is like, driving a car, like especially the way that this first verse is structured, driving up in circles, it's kind of like almost doing donuts, skidding on a road of black ice. If you ever driven on black ice, for any of those of us who have the unfortunate experience to do that, it sucks because you're skidding and you're completely out of control. But, I also think that it's probably most likely, because it's Neil, he's talking about something else as well. And maybe he's talking about just the control that you have over where you are going in your life. Maybe he's talking about something else. I don't know. That's almost always the beauty of Neil's lyrics, right? So that's kind of how I'm looking at this, especially this first verse here.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like you set off to something, whatever that is, but things always come up out of your control.
Exactly.
So how are you going to deal with that? You still want to go that way, but do you have to detour? You have to, you're skating on black ice. What could be traumatic. Could get out of it. It's out of your control. We'll see what happens right in the next couple of seconds.
Yep.
Nature is also very powerful, and it's interesting because this song is about taking control of one's life and one's circumstances. I just gave away, but yeah, that's it. So nature's very powerful, and you can't control nature. I mean, I don't live in a cold climate, but I have family that does, and sometimes you can't. And you can't control if there's a really big blizzard and you're driving, and then suddenly there's a bunch of ice or snow, and the conditions become dangerous.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is giving me some Red Tide vibes with the nature theming.
Yeah. And from that, it's a good parallel towards life, because you're cruising right along at your job. You're doing a fantastic job. Everybody loves working with you. And the very next day you're told that you're being laid off. Right. So it's the same kind of thing. That kind of thing, right, is how I relate back to this song.
And being the Canadian on the group, I've been through my share of blizzards and black ice and snow and sleet. Yeah. Just today, 6 inches of snow. So weird. So it's all good.
So bizarre. You should move somewhere where there's no snow at all, like Red Deer. There's nothing there. All right, I'm kidding. Canadian.
All right. And now we're moving on to the chorus. So I think the music kind of calms right down, and you just hear Alex strumming, and you hear, "It's my turn to drive, but it's my turn to drive."
Yeah.
Driven to the margin of error, driven to the edge of control, driven to the margin of terror, driven to the edge of a deep, dark hole.
This is where Lifeson switches from the riffing into something that would certainly mark the rest of their career, with some very prominent acoustic strumming and electric strumming, for lack of a better term, overdubs.
Yeah.
So he's got that acoustic laying into some A minor, laying into some G and some F, and then the electric more just power chords, having that punch. Certainly that's what brought up his use of piezos on this tour, with Paul Reed Smith installing those in the bridges and whatnot. But this of course turns into a nice counterpart to the riff. I had to, come on. It's like you got guys with
I see what you did there.
3 rim shots ready and available here with all the drummers. But yeah, a nice counterpart and alternation from the riff into that just driving power chord. Standard chord progression, straight out rock, A, G, F. So
yeah.
But musically just drives really hard during the chorus.
Yeah, kind of driving in a different manner now, because that first one was a little frenetic, which when you say black ice, you think it is frenetic for people, even for the Pauls and people like myself who live in an area where, we've had snow already and driven through it. Hey, they're driven again. Okay, fine. But the idea there is that black ice, like we're saying, there's a chaotic nature there. Their riff almost has the chaotic, and this chorus part is more, it still is moving forward, but it has a greater sense of being controlled, contained by comparison, maybe.
Yes.
I think that's as far as the words go here. I actually think that this song is about different things that happen in this person's life, different events. And in this particular case, it kind of went not his way. And then when the song continues, then it's another situation. Then it goes a slightly different way. So the unexpectedness of it all as his life is going, as his life goes by. So at this time, it's like driven to the edge of a deep dark hole. Okay, like if this was a movie, like okay, it's the next scene, that happened. What's coming up next for this guy? Could go wrong, could go, could be better, could be worse. We'll see, right? Because it's kind of like you don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, and the what Neil's playing in this part, I didn't really fully hear it. What he was playing in this part, where he's doing he's playing the roughs on the every other. He's playing 16th note triplets at a 6/8 time. Every other hit is a rough or a drag or whatever you want to call it. People argue about which of call, but I couldn't really hear that much until I watched the work in progress video and saw him do it, and I was like, that's what he's doing. So he's adding something that's so subtle to that section. Like, Alex is doing his strumming, which sounds really great, and it's really kind of mellow, and Neil's adding something that fills it but doesn't like step on it or push it out of the way or try to push it to the background. It'll more enhance it. And I've always thought that was so cool.
It's more fluid.
Very much so.
The whole Freddie Gruber philosophy is being fluid, right?
Oh yeah.
Fluid and groovy.
Yeah, big time, man. Big time.
So as they say, deep dark hole, it stops, and then Alex kicks up that riff again, right? And then we go into the second verse, where did it go? Here we go. Driven day and night in circles, spinning like a whirlwind of leaves, stealing in and out back alleys, driven to another den of thieves.
I find it interesting that up until we get to the very last verse of this song, pretty much all of this is in past tense. Driven.
Yeah, I would say so. Yep.
Not driving day and night in circles. Driven day and night in circles. It's something interesting I'd like to consider.
It's a good point.
And I think
so.
I'm sorry, guys.
Maybe we have a tone of self-reflection a little bit. I mean, Neil's lyrics are highly textured, so there's more to this than that. But maybe now that the guys are in their 40s, which is young, that's still young. You still have a lot of life to live, but they've also have a considerable amount of life experience.
Right.
At that point.
True.
I think you're right, because in the first verse, it was very uncertain, right, what was happening to the person. Then in this verse, it's kind of like he's a little more daring. He's day and night in circles, in and out of back alleys, driven to another den of thieves. It's kind of like it seems like he's a little more mature, a little more daring where he's going. So, he might even be more daring later because he has more experience in life, like you mentioned, Kira. So I think that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So then we follow the Donna Halper rule, where if it's a chorus is really important, it gets repeated. Because it's repeated again. It's my turn to drive, but it's my turn to drive. And it's the exact same. Driven to the margin of error, to the edge of control, to the margin of terror, to the edge of a deep, dark hole. And then probably one of my little favorite parts, he kicks into that kicks in that little bass solo. Just the live versions are awesome. But even that little, 10 second, just that little groove he's got going on is sick.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. It's just a good little the bridge. Let's call it the bridge, shall we?
This is an interlude. The lyrics coming up will be the bridge. So this is more of an instrumental interlude, because I mean, there's obviously, as you just said, live there's often the bass solo, which I was listening to different stages while driving today, and I just thought of how you have like the jokes about people always talking when there's the bass solo, going out to get a drink when there's this bass solo, but it's like you got 4 measures of Getty kicking in. It's sort of like, no, we're all watching, we're all listening. But in what Leifson plays in this part is just more interlude-y, and it's not really a solo. It's just a lot of unison bends for more texture, letting, because as Getty brought the demo to him with 4 tracks of bass, or 3 or 4 tracks of bass, saying, well, I did this to flesh out guitar, and Life's like, leave it all on there. And so the idea is this full-on bass extravaganza. So
right. Yeah. And it's a very, like, I agree. It's a really cool section, and it's something different because there's really not often just a solo bass, something that Geddy does in a song. He doesn't really do bass solos per se, like some other bands, bass players will do that. So it's really nice to hear that instrument completely soloed for a little while.
I mean, every so often you'll hear, like, for example, Headlong Flight, the bass starts by itself.
Yes.
But in the middle of a song, I don't think it's happening. Don't
Vital Signs has had that distinct bass solo. But of course, he's always kept it like 8 measures or so.
Right. Yeah. And it's with the rest of the band, right?
Wait, what?
It's with he's playing with the rest of the band.
Yeah. So it winds up being it's not a go to town big rock guitar solo where someone's showing off. This is a solo that is melodic, where I'm dropping a melody into this segment, and we're moving forward without the lyrics, because that's what we got to do. Whereas, I mean, this one certainly is a high energy solo, but it matches the energy and feel, obviously, of the entire song.
The solo sounds like the song.
Yes, it does.
The solo is one of my favorites, especially the Russian Rio version. I'm biased against that one, as everybody knows, but it's just great.
I love how he's like, during the solo, it's like at a higher. I'm not a guitarist, don't quote me, but like a higher octave. It's like but it's like a higher octave, and then he does his thing, and then he just kind of stops and then he hits the lower registers, and he just and then he gets into like the song version of it. But I just chills. But it's just another way to showcase how these 3 fine gentlemen were excellent professional musicians. More than I think some people realize. So this interlude brings us to the bridge. Driven in, driven to the edge, driven out on the thin edge of the wedge, driven off by things I've never seen, driven on by the road to somewhere I've never been. Driven on, driven in on the thin edge of the wedge, driven out, driven to the edge.
Well, that speaks to the introspection, and it's bringing the past tense to the present and turning it.
Yep.
Driven in, driven out, driven off, driven on. He's all over the map.
Yeah. It's all there.
No pun intended. He drove off the map. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I'll let myself at the end of the episode. It's all good. Any thoughts on this bridge? Because I mean, it's musically it's also different. It's just the way it kind of flows, the way he sings it too.
Well, the last line of the bridge is kind of like the theme we've been going around about that Kira started. He said, "By the road to somewhere I've never been." Like, the other times he's more uncertain, and as time goes by, okay, now I'm just gonna go this way.
Right.
I've never been, but I'm going. It's my turn to drive. I'm just taking over now. So I think this guy is progressing, or girl. He's progressing in his life. He's more assertive now of what he wants to do. He's more in control. He's not he was driven before, now he's driving. Now he's taking
And I think that's the arc of the song gets to that. I think it gets to just what you explained, Omar. I think it really gets to that. Yeah.
It's definitely frantic. It seems like there's a lot of internal turmoil, whether Neil's writing it about himself, Alex and Getty, or just for anyone. And I don't know, maybe so I was thinking, so this also kind of this whole song, but this verse too talks about risk and taking risk in life, and it makes me think about where they were at before they decided that they were going to make 2112, and they were at such a low point, And they were like, well, if we're going to go out, we're going to go out with the blaze of glory in 2112. I mean, it was a huge risk, even more than Crest of Steel, because it was either going to make them or break them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that at that time, it was probably really difficult to decide, well, what are we going to do? What is the most riskiest, but also and boldest move, but also the least risky? Like what's going to fail and what's not going to fail? So maybe I'm out of bounds, but it's just something I thought of.
No, 2112 was about sticking it to the man. That's it.
Well, but
at the end of the day, they wanted to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be told what to do.
And I think it was just like Kira mentioned, like, I even think, I mean, I know we should talk about Driven, but I think even back then that was a risk. And they're going from, hey, is somebody else going to control us? Like this song starts with, hey, am I being controlled by something else, or do I want to try to get some control of it? So I think that's a really good parallel, Kira, that you made from, back, for this song, even back to 2112. And I mean, I have no idea if what Neil thought was thinking when he wrote this, but it's an interesting parallel, I think.
And I think
also with the rhythm, if I could, because I get a few people who might care about rhythm. So at this point, it just moves into a straight 6/8. Well, obviously, I mean, it's the drummer panel basically. It's drummers and Kira and myself. So it goes into 6/8, and you figure. I just think it's interesting that under the bridge is this. I'm not going to say. I don't want to say it, but I kind of want to say slower riff, because he's playing basically the just dotted quarter notes in the 6/8 time, which 6/8 is a dance. It's a jig. It's a tarantello, saltarello.
Right.
But in this case, you just get that triplet feel, which has this low riff. So he really opens up the space, is a better way to say it than slow down, for the sake of just an intensity of what's being sung at this point. And certainly, like the discussion here of 2112, the road to somewhere I've never been, and on the thin edge of the wedge, getting ready to head up and really take it on. And the music is there as the background. Well, but you know what I'm saying, everyone out in YouTube land too.
Yeah, it's dark. The music is like kind of dark and menacing, and just not caring. Like this guy's like, it's kind of like a dark type attitude, or a decisive attitude, like to go forward.
Yeah.
But that brings us to the final verse, where I think the story kind of gets better. It goes, the road unwinds towards me. What was there is gone. The road unwinds before me, and I go riding on.
Present tense. We're now in present tense. We're not in past tense anymore.
Yes, we are living in the present tense. see who gets that reference. Who's watching there? Yeah, and that, I love that verse. It's like, all right, so it's like, okay, I'm going forward, however, what path it is, what was there has happened. The past is the past, right? But I'm going to go riding on towards whatever that future happens to be. That's what I get out of that. I love it. I love the song. So
yep. I like the way those lyrics kind of end there as well. I go riding on. I'm going to do my thing.
I mean, obviously he wrote this before this happened, but to me, this is also foreshadowing of the unfortunate loss that he does have. His wife and daughter. I mean, because he goes on a journey with his motorcycle, and I've read Ghost Rider, not really knowing how long he was going to go for. He just knew he needed to do something to heal and to cope.
Yeah. And there was a lot of songs, including this one that he wrote that foreshadowed what he was going to be experiencing. And now, he believed all this. Now, he believe it now that he had to experience all of that. Right. And, it turns out that he did. He was very genuine. Yeah. Everything he wrote about himself, which a lot of it was, to me, he wrote a lot about his feelings. Then we had to actually experience the darkness. he proved himself true, because I think everything he's writing about now, was actually how he would be when those actual negative situations happened in his life.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, also, I keep cutting off Paul, but we've been on a lot of episodes together, so
you could cut off Paul.
It's usually worth listening to at some point, so it's all good.
All right. Well, I'll try to make it worthwhile. So after the bridge and before this verse, there's a short 2-line chorus, but it's my turn to drive, but it's my turn to drive. And that's where the way Geddy sings it in the studio version, if people haven't already noticed that, please throw it on and listen to it again. He sings "It's my turn to drive" in imploring, a pleading, and it has an intensity, the subtle intensity that goes from, oh, it's my turn to drive, to it's my turn to drive. And that's something that that hit me, like when I bought the album, it was just like slam right in the face, just the way he And you can certainly hear that in a lot of vocal takes. I mean, I think of like Peter Murphy song, or I think of Paul McCartney on Golden Slumbers. But in this case, since we're talking about Driven, listen to after the bridge, the short chorus that leads us into the verse that really he has this determination, is the way I'll end it, as far as moving into the road and unwinding towards him, basically.
That's, man, now I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it more
exactly
closely.
I'm gonna have to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. No, seriously.
Thanks, sir. Just realized I'd skipped that part. Sorry. Oops.
And I think part of it is that Geddy has to obviously sing Neil's lyrics, right? But he's also adding some inflections in there, and when he's trying to add the more inflection on "it's my turn to drive," and that means something, right? It's my turn to drive is different than it's my turn to drive, right? And I think Geddy's vocal delivery of that in this song and many songs actually is just so good, and it really helps I think to drive home what the message in the lyrics is. Drive, put up.
Well, another thing about the drumming that I want to throw in real quick is the part where he sings "Driven to the Edge of a Deep Dark Hole." That part is sung like 5 times, I think, in the song. Every time Neil's doing something different, as he typically does. The first time he's just on the hat. It's just the hat. And then the second time it's double stroke swells hitting the ride cymbal. The third time it's double stroke rolls swelling hitting the crash. And the last time it's when it's the end of the song when he's doing the so like he's again doing different things when the verse comes back, doing something different, making it spicy.
And if the beauty of that, I think, is watching it while he's playing. So if any of you guys who are listening haven't seen it and you're sitting around with nothing to do, go onto YouTube and search Neil Peart, A Work in Progress, Driven, some combination of that. It's gonna come up because that DVD is out there, and just watch Neil play Driven, and it's incredible to watch. It is masterful, actually.
Yes,
I don't know how many. Yep. I don't know how many times like you hear the song, you go, "How did he do that? How does then you watch it, and you go, it clicks."
Yeah,
right.
It's just, like it's like, oh, that's how he did it. Okay, let me do that. It's like, crap.
That's not
how
did
happen. He do that?
And then finally we go on to the last. He repeats the chorus a third time.
Yeah.
And the Donna Halper rule, very important.
Yeah.
So it's repeated. And finally we go right. He repeats the last line, which is "driven to the edge of a deep dark hole," with Geddy hitting that higher note when he says it the last time, and then we've got the short outro of the song.
Oh yeah,
that lilt.
What a cool outro that is too. It's rocking. That outro is just like, take the whole song, you're rocking. It's kind of like, in a way, in a bizarre way, it's sort of kind of, stay with me, reminds me of the end of Subdivisions. So the way that Subdivisions ends, it's all rocking. They're out there. You hear that performed live, and you're like, oh yeah. And I think I've either read or heard a couple of the band members say, yeah, that song was like designed to play live. It should be played live. I feel the same about, especially the end of Driven.
And well, they've played Driven quite often live on the Test for Echo tour.
That was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
it's 4 minutes
Paper
and like
trail.
37 seconds of just awesomeness. This song is just like, this is why it's my top 3 on the album. It has to be an awesome.
And it had a video, which
there you go. It's right. You have the thing behind you. I noticed that. That is cool. Yeah, the video is really weird.
This picture is related to
cool.
Driven too. I don't know.
It was very 90s.
It was extremely 90s.
Yeah.
Yes.
They had that
it
coloration.
Was very 90s. Yeah.
People started to color grade film into greens and blues to make things a little unsettling. Right. So whether you're talking about Fincher or you're talking about something like Minority Report, which obviously was out of the 90s, but get that kind of
great one too.
Once again, the mood, the visuals, which obviously I'm gesturing around the video, is there to make people a little uneasy too.
Yeah.
And you got those guys racing in these vehicles that are not quite motorcycles, it's like cars, and they're just
it's like
flying through this dystopic factory.
I just noticed that there are cars there. I didn't see that before.
Yeah.
I'm such an idiot. There. I've seen it a million times. That's what I see.
I like that they put some humor into this isn't my last comment, but I like that they put some humor into a lyrically somewhat heavy song.
Yep.
It's a nice offset without being too cheesy or pedantic.
Yep.
But I wanted to say about Driven lyrically as a whole. Please bear with me. I promise this is short. I like that Neil is continuing writing songs that are life allegories. It's a continuing pattern that I will argue started with moving pictures, because Limelight kind of has some lyrics that mimic that. And I've noticed that it's a continuing pattern that has seemed to increase over time and only increases more once Neil and Geddy and Alex take off that time because of Neil losing his wife and daughter. And I don't know, I think this continuing pattern really demonstrates that the guys have continued to mature, have gained wisdom, have aged. And I think it's something that makes the later periods of Rush just so much more attractive, is because it's more relatable. So I think that this song just kind of has it all. But it's something I had to mention.
Yeah, that's a good
seemingly
point.
With less words too, not too wordy.
Yes.
Yeah,
but it says a lot.
More succinct.
Yeah,
does say a lot. Does.
So with that being said, any final thoughts before we wrap it up for tonight? No, other than it's an awesome song.
And I think my favorite version is the studio version. Oddly enough, this is my favorite version.
There's several versions out there, but the studio version is. I guess that's what they wanted, right? They recorded it, so
for sure, right?
So for everybody out there, if you're still with us, by all means, click like, subscribe, leave your comments. Let us know what you think of this awesome song, Test for Echo Driven. Stay tuned. The next one up is Eric's favorite song, Half the World. I'm joking, Eric. It's all good.
That's another great song.
That is another great song. So anyway, for that, thanks everybody for your support, for watching, and until next time, stay safe.